Hi, I'm Dominic Patten from Deadline Hollywood, and welcome to another season of our Next Generation video series, where we talk to some of the up-and-comers and stars of today and tomorrow. Today, for our first one of 2018, I'm extremely happy to welcome Frankie Shaw from SMILF, the creator, star, executive producer of the Showtime series.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. So I want to start off right away in talking about it. You know, the title of the show is something which unto itself is almost a story, because some people look at it and are like, oh, what's all that about? And some people look at it and go, that's saying something I'm maybe not into. For you, was that a consideration in the show, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, so when I had made the short film, I called it SMILF, and it sort of just automatically stuck when we sold it as a series. And there was some discussion about whether we should change it or not.
With Showtime?
With Showtime. Yeah. When we got the pickup, our launch was shortly thereafter. So there was only about 2 weeks before we were starting to get together press and all of that. So we didn't have that much time to do tests. It was more of an internal discussion.
Did you, I mean, obviously when you had the film at Sundance, Sundance is its thing, right?
Yes.
You know, there are, like for instance, Fruitvale Station was originally called Fruitvale at Sundance, changed the title because some people thought, you know, if you call it Fruitvale, unless you live in the Bay Area, you're going to think it's about some guy selling vegetables. Right. Did you think of making a change to it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still really torn because I hear people who are turned off by it. And so the intention behind it was always sort of this feminist reclaiming of a derogatory term of MILF. But what we didn't maybe consider was just, you know, that it has, you know, a curse word in the title, and where's that problematic? And we're actually addressing that this season with our marketing. And there's also been
in season two.
Yeah, and there's also been a discussion like, should we change the title, which we are not going to.
One of the things that you depict in it is this is a single mom raising a little kid in Boston, has, you know, a whole bunch of different things going on in her life and trying to get ahead in her life, and that seeking of traction. But it's interesting because it's a story you don't see that often anymore. This is someone who shouldn't have a lot of money. And she's around people who do have money, with Connie Britton's family and what have you. Part of that depiction for you, you know, is that important to you to show those different elements of American life? Yeah,
I mean, I'm very familiar with that struggle, so it was inherently going to be part of the story. And then I think that on one hand, when we watch TV that sort of ignores financial circumstance and the just like the challenges that a lot of Americans face, there's like fantasy element to it, right? So there's a way to, there's escapism. But it was really important with our show that we're actually representing the true trials and problems when you don't have enough money to feed your kid, or you don't have enough money for childcare, you know, and all that. And I think that actually goes into some of the title debate because, you know, the word SMILF has a certain connotation, but then you watch the show and it's nothing like that. And so I just feel like this show is trying to sort of turn expectations on its head.
So if you talk about changing the title, even talking about changing the title of season 2, are you thinking like what they did with Jane the Virgin? Once Jane was no longer a virgin, like they literally changed the title card at the beginning of every show. Is it SMILF, not SMILF?
I have, it's sort of like, we had an idea of like, you know, a title and then the show formerly known as, but we're not doing that. But I do have an answer. So you're going to be like Prince and create a sign? We're just going to be a symbol of a basketball. That's it.
That's a good one. That's a good one. But with a basketball, you have to have like, you maybe have to have like an Aerosmith, like something very Boston on it. Right?
Yeah, right. So, you know, I mean, part of this sort of discussion is I just did the showrunner panel and someone had said, oh, my husband refused to watch the show because of the title, but then we were doing this panel, so we watched it, and we love it, you know? So it's those moments where I'm like, oh, are we actually alienating an audience? But hopefully the idea is people will find their way in somehow, and there are a lot of people who are finding it.
Now, you know, a lot of people found you in many ways from your time on Mr. Robot and on Good Girls Revolt. And I wanted to get a sense is, you know, that's as an actress. This is, as you said, you're a showrunner, you're a creator, and you're the star, you're a writer on this. You know, what did you learn from working on those shows and looking at the people and learning from the people, if you did learn from them, on those shows that helped you for SMILF?
Mr. Robot was really influential to me. Sam, when I had shot the season of Mr. Robot, I was already in development with Showtime for SMILF. So I was by the monitor watching the way he works, and I really admire and just was trying to soak everything up that I could from him. He's also a 6'2" Egyptian man, and when he tells the studio I'm not writing outlines, they listen. It's a little bit different with me, but he...
Is that, Frankie, I want to ask you that. You know, okay, so Sam is a 6'2" Egyptian man, but you're a tremendously creative and talented person, and yet you still found, like you mentioned earlier, there's a little bit of push with Showtime, and Showtime, you know, they're big supporters of the show, clearly.
Well, I would say,
finding your own voice, was that part of the issue?
It's not really about them. It was really a process, at least just in the pilot development, that I had to feel confident in my own voice, and that was a process. I feel much more able to sort of stand my ground now. I would say that it was my first time developing. It was my first time on notes call with like 20 people, and there is this thing of like wanting to be a good student and wanting to knock over 12 hours and give, you know, just like follow the rules a little bit. And I think this job is a combination of both things, right? And like honoring the creative and staying true to the story. Because what I've found over and over, that it's the first idea, the gut idea, is the one that wins. And if you don't listen to that, your show, your episode, your script, that's all going to suffer. But there's a way in which, because it's not just like I'm not making short films. It's like a whole lot more money and a whole lot more people. But I feel like in the beginning, when I was first developing the show, I really was taking in other people's idea of what the show should be a little bit, listening to that more than I was listening to myself. And then there was just like a complete shift, and it was never contentious. I just became a little bit more not afraid, you know? And that's when it sort of came together. And I think that is essential in order to even just get a show on air.
Now, how is that informed going into season 2 for you? Because obviously, you know, any show, season 1 is like, hi, I'm me, this is us, please don't hate us, please, you know, watch us. Now you got renewed, which is kind of like, well, that's part of your job.
Yeah.
Now you've got that.
So this season, it's like, let's take all the risks and let's like be as ambitious as we can, which I've heard is a thing that happens in many season 2s. And I've had a couple of showrunners who I've become friends with say, oh, in the beginning of any season, but especially season 2, there's like sort of this internal freak out, like, do I have another thing in me? And I even like working out with my trainer once, he was like, everyone's got one novel in them, you know? So there's like this pressure, but what's ended up happening is, because the show has to stay interesting to you and to me to make, and so we're just going deeper in sort of the areas we started with in season 1, but now you guys know the characters, you know the world, that we're just experimenting a little bit more and taking more risks.
Is it going to surprise people, you think?
I hope so. You know, we're still in script stage, but it's been so fun to write.
Now, you know, a lot of people don't know how much of SMILF is really, really based on you. Not just that you're the creator, but in a sense is, maybe this is the wrong phrase when we talk about it, but you really birthed this in many ways. And so I wanted to get a sense from you when you went through your own single mom experience as an actress trying to find your way. Now looking back on that, how much of that do you find still keeps seeping into the show? Whereas you were like, oh, this is hell. Yeah. Now you're like, oh, that's a great scene. I totally have to include that thing on the bus.
I feel like it's so similar, the process of being a single mom with a young child and creating and running a TV show. There's like almost no difference, except there's like a live human and then there's just like celluloid or, you know, fake celluloid.
Crew of like 55.
That's right. I mean, so I feel like every showrunner would say that, you know, it's like, you're thinking about the show and the stories at every moment of the day, even when you're not thinking about it. It's sort of you're living it when you're in the process of birthing a season, you know, because you start with nothing and at the end you have a whole thing. So in that case, it's very similar. But in terms of like how much of the show is actually based on my life, you know, the very basic sort of statistics or demographics of it, you know, are similar, but we really veer off into other writer stories and other issues we care about and what's the most interesting story? So there is a big difference.
Is that, you know, it always interests me in those kind of things. Is that hard or easy for you? Because do you see it and go like, no, I don't think she would do that. And you're challenged by your writing staff of like, no, look, she would go there. That's how she would feel now. Not the person we started with, but the person we're at now in episode 2 of season 2.
I mean, I think there's always that discussion.
I guess it's a question of ownership.
Right, yeah. But the difference is usually the actor playing the part isn't in the room, you know, or it's not like loosely based on the person's life, or sometimes that is too. But, you know, I feel like it is always a discussion, you know. But I do feel like it's a guttural thing. So whether, it's not like, oh, is this something Frankie would do? Because we didn't call the show Frankie. The character's not named Frankie. There is a departure. But there is a conversation about what is true for Bridget or Tutu or Eliza, you know, or Allie. So that conversation is alive and well, but it's not like based on like what I would do.
So you want to run it back with us? And give me a shot to, you know, redeem myself a little bit?
I mean, if you really want to embarrass yourself.
Oh, okay. It's a little cocky. I like that. I like that. Yeah, do you hear that?
What?
That kid keeps crying.
I'll be right back.
Hi, did you just wake up?
Hey, Larry, I just need you to play cool, okay?
Okay.
Okay, come on, let's go.
Come here.
Come on. This kid?
Yeah, so what are you, like his nanny, or?
I'm, his mom.
Oh.
Mommy.
All right. It's a cute kid.
Oh.
See you out there, Scrappy. Run it back.
Okay. I'm Bridget. Maybe we can go for a drink later. Okay, cool. You want to go on the side?
Yeah.
Me too.
Now you have, of course, as well as doing SMILF, you've been doing other projects. You had another short film at Sundance and what have you. What more can we see coming from you besides the show?
I have a bunch of things that I'm working on that aren't really like out there yet, but more TV, and there's a movie that I'm working on as well.
Do you know, one thing that when I've talked over the years to people who create and star in their own shows, you know, one of the things that people talk about is they've learned the fine art of time management, and that every, you know, it's like your life is a 15-minute compartmentalized affair. As you expand, you know, what's that terrible expression, grow the circle or grow the cookie or whatever business management people say, you know, are you finding that you're like, oh, this is exactly how far I want to take this, and this is where I want it to go, and I feel like I'm being pushed too hard here?
Yeah, I mean, the time management aspect of it all is probably one of the most challenging parts of it. I delegate a lot. I feel like a lot of my life, my son makes fun of me of like having these like young women assistants like taking on different things all the time just so we can like, you know, because I guess the whole point is like to protect the creative time, and then I could spend all day sort of managing, you know, all the random things going on. So I don't really feel ever like in danger of being pushed to do something or not do something, because I am really excited about the different creative opportunities I have come my way. I think the main issue is, you know, when you're making a TV show, you're writing and then directing and then editing for so many months of the year that some of these things will have to wait till SMILF is put to rest a little bit.
How long could you see SMILF going? You know, some people talk about, they're like, yeah, this is, I've always seen this as a 5-season show. I've always seen this as this. Do you have a sense of that?
I do, you know, and I'm still sort of working it out. It could go off in many different ways. It's not something where she's going to be a young single mom forever. It'll be a young grandmother.
I have to ask you this, because of the nature of the show, but also because of the nature of you as an American artist. What type of response have you had? I can't think of another way to say it. Well, no, I'm not going to say other SMILFs, but what kind of response have you had from single moms who've seen the show? It's
been the most sort of rewarding part of it. It's not just, I mean, there's been a lot of sort of single parents reaching out to me on Twitter or whatever, or stopping me on the street when I'm out to dinner with Isaac or something, and sort of thanking me for putting their experience on screen. So that's been pretty incredible. And then also just people, a lot of times like, I'm not a parent, but I related to it, or this, you know, I came into work quoting this character, or just whatever it is, just really responding to it. And that never gets old.
Do you have that, you know, of course, one of the things that's about the show is, of course, it's a biracial child.
Yeah.
So is that also another element that you find people respond to?
Yeah, there's like a big Black community who's found the show and has vocalized their support, and also just questioning it too. And like there's a discussion I'm having actually right now in the writer's room of like actually addressing that Larry is not, that she doesn't have a white son, you know, and how is that going to affect her parenting? So that we sort of address in one of the episodes.
I have to ask you just to finish up.
Yeah, what I do want to say that the people who have come to me with their own experiences of sexual violence, that has been overwhelming and in the greatest way.
Well, that's actually what I wanted to talk about, because I think that's, you know, underneath the comedic and dramatic elements of SMILF, that is a very, very serious topic. I mean, I've always thought that those discussions of abuse that are in the show, you know, in a sense, they're discussions of abuse to me, and also in many ways, and maybe this is as a white male, is they're also discussions of a sense of personal freedom and who you are and how you can maintain that. So I wanted to get a sense from you is, how do you tell those stories? And I guess you began to talk about it. How do people react to them?
Yeah, I think it's one of the hardest things for people to talk about openly because of the history of shame and stigma, and also the sort of internalized, just like the self-blame, and the fact that women forever and men were not believed. So there's all of these reasons stacked up why not to talk about it. And then also that there's, in the past, have not been consequences when you do speak up. And so it was really important that, you know, when you talk about these issues, one of the things I was talking about with the network and with the writers is that it's showing the darkest parts of humanity, especially childhood abuse, childhood sexual abuse. So it was important that we made it okay for the audience to laugh with us and to feel with us. So when we were doing our finale talking about Bridget's sexual abuse, we gave her like that bowl haircut because we're like, we need, and she like just like kept up the physical comedy. So we're like, it's okay, we're gonna take you on this journey, but you can laugh and you can cry and it can just be part of the whole her existence. It can be very, be part of your humanity. And so that's at least the way I know how to write about it.
Well, it seems so textured and multi-leveled. I mean, so often, and I don't mean to diss on anyone, but when people talk about these subjects, they go to the dark place and they stay in the dark place, as opposed to these things happen to people and they have to go to work the next day, or they have to get, you know, like the plumbing's gone, like, you know, and I've got a therapy appointment. It's like, you know, these are the realities of these things. And I felt that SMILF really allowed it to talk about that. And that, to me, actually, of all the topics you dealt with, that was the one where I think you inverted the title of the show the most. Because I think you actually said, well, this is ours, and we're going to claim this.
Yes. Thank you. So, yeah.
Well, Frankie Shaw, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Please join us again for more of Deadline's Next Generation video series. We'll be talking to people who are the up-and-comers and the big stars of tomorrow as we look into this Emmy Award season. And remember, you can see lots of videos that we do on Deadline, as well as our reviews by me for television and Pete Hammond doing his film reviews. See you soon.